Monsters is a podcast about the worst human beings on the planet. The episodes of this podcast deal with murder, dismemberment, torture, rape, child abuse, and mental illness. Please turn back while you still can. Listener discretion advised. I want to take a minute to thank all of the people who've supported this channel. There's been an overwhelmingly positive response, and I want to thank everyone who's watched, subscribed, and donated money. This was going to be the final episode of the season, but due to the positive feedback, I've added 2 more shows. This season will end before Christmas, and we'll pick up with Season 2 in January. I want to thank everyone again, and I look forward to continuing to provide you with content. JoAnn Cunningham and Andrew Freund spent most of their son, AJ Freund's life, abusing him and berating him. In April of 2019, the parents forced the 4-year-old boy into a freezing cold shower before Cunningham beat him with a detachable shower head. AJ died later that night, and the parents buried his body before calling the police and reporting him missing. This is Monsters.
Come back and find out that he's deceased.
Tapping me on the head, telling me I'm cheating, telling me let me see your phone.
Just kill her, and she died.
I think Diego Campione is totally in the wrong, and I hope he burns in hell for all his sins.
Hell's not a very fun place.
I only have 2 hands. I'm not 4 hands, girl. I'm 2 hands.
And I don't know, just get escalated.
There's been quite a few cases of filicide in the United States that have made people question the effectiveness of local child protective agencies. The Netflix series The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez shined a spotlight on the failure of the Los Angeles County Department of Child and Family Services. There were multiple reports of abuse to police and social workers over the course of 8 months, but Gabriel was never removed from the home. In the case of 7-year-old Adrian Jones, who was murdered and fed to pigs by his father Michael Jones and his stepmother Heather Jones, the Kansas Department of Child and Families had multiple visits to the Jones home. Adrian himself told the agents that he was repeatedly kicked and punched by his father, even stating that they, quote, always lock me in my room, I have to sleep without a pillow and blanket, end quote. Adrian's own grandmother contacted DCF twice to express concern about the boy's situation. Adrian was never removed from the home. Even outside of the U.S., children are not always being protected from potentially deadly homes. One of our previous stories about Samantha Keymatch, which took place in Canada, was another tragic story of a child who was living with adults who had a long history with their local child protective services. It led to an inquiry which called for 62 recommendations for improving the child welfare system. The Province of Manitoba announced that it had or was planning to implement many of the suggested changes. This case follows a similar path. Drug-addicted parents who had extensive records with the Illinois Department of Child and Family Services. Even though the child had tested positive for opiates at birth, DCFS continued to give the parents custody of him. It would eventually cost him his life. JoAnn Cunningham had been receiving visits from the Illinois Department of Child and Family Services before AJ was ever born. Cunningham already had a child with her high school boyfriend, and she was fostering another child. DCFS had been out multiple times to investigate reports of drug abuse and inadequate supervision. Both times the cases were labeled as unfounded. This means that they didn't find any evidence of abuse or neglect. They did end up removing the foster child when it was revealed that she had moved without prior permission from the foster care agency. In 2012, Cunningham was getting a divorce from Craig Summercamp, who she married in 2006. This is where she met Andrew Freund, as he was her divorce lawyer. During her divorce proceedings, she and Freund were found in criminal contempt for removing items from Summercamp's home despite a court order not to. The judge ordered Cunningham to a 30-day jail sentence, and during this time, Cunningham's mother, Lori Hughes, became the guardian of her 12-year-old son. Eventually, Summercamp and Cunningham's marriage was dissolved, and she moved in with Freund. Within days of her moving in, police were called because Cunningham had sent a text to her friend that said, quote, I'll see you on the other side, end quote. She also sent her boyfriend a text that said, quote, I'm going to hang myself in your house, end quote. Paramedics took her for a mental health evaluation. Andrew Freund Jr., who they called AJ, was born on October 14, 2013, and just 2 days later, DCFS got a report of drug abuse and neglect. A drug test found the baby had opiates in his system, and he was taken from Cunningham and Freund. The court placed AJ with a cousin, where he lived for the next 18 months. During that time, Cunningham and Freund had another child, Parker, who remained with the parents. In June of 2015, the court ordered AJ to be returned to his home. Over the next 10 months, DCFS made 26 unannounced visits to the family's home and saw no sign of abuse or neglect. Then there's a period of quiet in the family. There are no reports from DCFS or police for about 2.5 years. One can only speculate at what was going on in the house. It's possible that milder abuse was taking place as the situation built to what would eventually cause the death of AJ. In March of 2018, Cunningham had been taken to the hospital after being found unresponsive in a car. The hospital staff had observed bruising on AJ's face. An agent from DCFS interviewed the family nearly a month later and found no evidence of maltreatment. This activity continued for the rest of 2018.
On Halloween in 2017, AJ and defendant Freund arrived at his home while trick-or-treating. He observed AJ to have a number of bandages on various parts of his body. Defendant Freund explained to Rossau that the injuries were caused by AJ having spilled boiling water on himself in her visits to BCU. On the first occasion, Lamberti noticed that AJ had an extremely dark black eye and bruises on his necks and arms. Upon Lamberti inquiring as to the cause of these injuries, Cunningham stated that AJ had, quote, accidentally fallen down the stairs. On the second occasion, approximately 3 weeks after the first, Lamberti observed that AJ had a cut and black and blue bruises on his arms and face. Cunningham explained to Lamberti that AJ had entered their basement and hit himself with power tools. On the third occasion, Lamberti observed AJ to have bruising to his face. Cunningham did not offer an explanation as to the cause of these injuries. At the end of March or early April 2019, defendant Freund had brought AJ to work. Barfus observed that AJ had significant bruising and cuts on his forehead and the side of his face. After inquiring as to the cause of these injuries, defendant Freund replied that AJ had, quote, fell down the stairs.
DCFS got continuous reports of the children being mistreated, abused, the parents doing drugs, or the house being filthy or unsafe. DCFS investigated, but reported the claims unfounded and did nothing. According to these parents, AJ is the clumsiest child on the planet. He seems to keep falling down the stairs. Agents testified about the condition of the house.
What, if anything, did you observe about the condition of the residence?
It was not good. There was parts of the ceiling were missing, and there was a big hole in the ceiling. The floor had been destroyed. The tile or linoleum had been up. It was raw wood. The door area was black with dirt and feces. It smelled horrific. That was just the main entry. As we continued through the house, the living room area had bags and bags of clothes and piles of clothes strewn about. We then went upstairs, checked AJ's room. The window was open. I thought odd because it was cold. It smelled of dirty diapers. There were stacks of dirty diapers on the floor and overflowing, and there was a nasty stench. And then I think that was all the rooms that I had checked at that point.
On March 4th, 2019, Cunningham made a video of AJ laying naked in a crib with bandages over his wrists and hips. He had an ice pack over his eyes, and he was covered in bruises. His mother is heard in the video berating him over wetting the bed. Wetting the bed is not uncommon for children who are suffering abuse. It is uncommon for a child who wets the bed to have an underlying cause such as abuse be the reason they're wetting the bed. But when a child is being abused, it tends to cause stress, which can cause bedwetting. Then, the bedwetting angers the parent, who abuses the child over the bedwetting, creating a vicious cycle of child abuse. Cunningham would record AJ other times when she talked to him as well. Recordings that were played in court were extremely eye-opening regarding how AJ felt about his family.
But why do you want them to hurt me and Parker? Why?
So I don't
ever see you again.
The clip is a recording of AJ telling Cunningham that he wanted bad people to hurt her so he wouldn't have to see her again. Cunningham yells, quote, "What is it?" End quote. AJ responds, quote, "It is, cause it's so bad people would hurt you," end quote. Cunningham asks, quote, "But why would you want bad people to hurt me and Parker? Why?" End quote. AJ says, quote, "Cause, so I don't ever see you again," end quote. 2 weeks before his death, she recorded him again.
Answer the question. 'Cause I just don't want anybody around me.
Because you don't want anyone around you? Well, you want your dad around you, you said. Right?
Right. But I just
What?
I just don't want anybody around me right now.
Why is that?
'Cause I want to be alone with nobody.
Why?
'Cause I just,
So you want to live alone? Huh?
yeah. I just don't want a family, and I
You
want.
don't have one. You already have one already. And that's Daddy included. Daddy, let me tell you. You got Daddy all mixed up. Do you really think he'd choose you over me and Parker?
No, I don't like that.
In this clip, which is easier to understand, he explains that he doesn't want to be around anyone. He does claim to like his dad, and that makes sense, since Freund seems to be less violent with the boy. He begins by saying that he doesn't want anybody around him. He wants to live alone. He says that he doesn't want a family. Cunningham is quick to inform the boy that he doesn't have a family and that his father wouldn't choose him over her and Parker. This boy is only 5 years old and he is dreaming about having no family. It's because all he knows about family is that they hurt you. Family to him means people who beat you and yell at you and stick you in a cold shower for extended periods of time. All he wants is to not have that happen anymore. On April 14th, JoAnn Cunningham had discovered a pair of soiled underwear at the bottom of AJ's closet. Her and Freund were asking him why they were there, but they weren't getting an answer from him. After spanking got them nowhere, Cunningham put the boy in a cold shower for about 20 minutes. Freund had told police during his interrogation that he wanted Cunningham to stop using physical violence as a punishment. He felt like she was too aggressive and had previously asked her to tone it down, which is why she was using the shower. It looked like Cunningham couldn't keep her violence at bay because she had also beat the child with a shower head as part of her punishment. The medical examiner found multiple injuries consistent with the detachable shower head in their bathroom, and that his cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head.
Show me what's been marked as Exhibit E2. Doctor, what are we looking at here?
This is his face from a forward view.
All right, and doctor, using this, you got a laser pointer right here.
Wait, wait.
The top one, right?
Top one.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Using diagram 21 to the front of AJ's face, could you just describe the injuries that you observed?
On the front of the face here, there's a number of abrasions up here, some of which are, there are multiple small circular abrasions. Some of them are irregular.
All right, and prior to coming here to court, doctor, did you have the opportunity to review pictures of the shower head that was found on the second floor of 94 Dole Avenue?
Yes, sir.
All right, and how do those compare to the abrasions that you saw on the forehead of AJ Freund's remains?
The multiple circular red abrasions here on the central forehead match the shower head that I was shown.
The couple claimed that AJ was put to bed cold, wet, and naked. At some point later that night, Cunningham went to AJ's room to check on him and found him unresponsive.
Well, basically, he's received multiple injuries to his head. His brain is swelling. He's inhaling blood. His brain is swelling more. Now his brain is swollen so much that it's actually starting to crush itself against the skull because it has no place to go. And because it's crushing itself inside, well, the vital, breathing, heart, all the different organs slowly but surely shut down. And then death occurs.
Would this have been a painful death?
When he was actually being injured, yes. Once he's unconscious, of course, no.
Okay. And then in terms of the extent of the blunt force trauma, how does this compare to other cases of child abuse that you've seen?
It's a pretty bad case.
At around 3 o'clock the following morning, one of them used Freund's cell phone to search for child CPR. Once they determined that the boy was dead, Freund put his body in a plastic tote and placed it in the basement. On April 17th, Freund put his son's body in garbage bags and loaded it into the trunk of his car. He drove out to Woodstock, about 10 miles northwest of Crystal Lake, and buried the boy in a shallow grave on a vacant lot. On the way home, he stopped by the store where he bought duct tape, air freshener, bleach, and plastic gloves. Authorities believe these supplies were used to clean up the crime scene. The following morning, Freund went to his 6:30 a.m. doctor's appointment where he was sure to get a receipt. He even mentioned to the receptionist about needing, quote, a paper trail, end quote. When he returned home, he called 911 and reported AJ missing.
911, what's the address of your emergency? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We have a missing child. Woke up this morning and he wasn't.
How old is the child?
Yeah, missing child.
Yeah, how old is he?
He's 5.
And what was he last seen wearing?
A Mario, like blue long sleeve sweatshirt and a black sweatpants.
And is he a male white?
Yes.
And when was the last time you seen him?
Last night, probably 9:30, when he went to bed.
Okay. Are you the father?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know where he might have went?
No. We've canvassed the neighborhood. I went to the local park. The local gas station down here where we sometimes take them to buy treats. I spoke with the assistant principal over there at the school where the park is, and they haven't seen him or any other child. I have no idea where he would be.
Okay. So you put him to bed last night, so he was in his pajamas, and then when you tried to get him for school, he wasn't there, and then you looked around for a bit?
Yes.
Have you checked everywhere, like under tables or in closets?
Closets, the basement, the garage, everywhere.
Okay. What's your child's name?
Andrew, last name Freund. We call him AJ.
And Freund is T-R-E-N-D?
F-R-E-U-N-D.
Was any of the doors open?
No. I mean, no outside doors or anything like that.
No doors or windows?
No.
Okay, officer's phone on door now.
Okay, yeah, I see him.
When police arrived, they first searched the house just to make sure AJ hadn't been missed. An officer testifies about the condition of the home.
We asked the parents for consent to search the house extensively to make sure AJ had not been overlooked or was hiding or any circumstances.
All right, and so just generally after going into the house, what was your impressions? What were some of your impressions of the home and the interior of the home, please?
My initial entry on the side door, which is the main point of entry, I had sensory overload. Kitchen is the main point. When you walk into the kitchen, the subfloor is exposed. There was no room on the counters for anything at all. The ceiling had a hole in it, had some water damage. Basically, more or less just filth is how I viewed it as.
What did it smell like?
A stale smell, food that had been left out.
Did you smell anything? Was there the smell of urine?
A faint smell. More or less a stale, musty smell in the kitchen area upon entry. I was more or less sensory overloaded when you first walked in. It was just so much to take in at once. I was not expecting to see that when you first walk in for a missing child report.
Okay.
Police claim that the home was filthy with ripped up floors, food left out, and garbage everywhere. The officer also describes the lock that was on the door of AJ's room so he could be locked inside.
This is the outside to AJ's room.
Okay. And D28?
That's a chain lock with a padlock attached to the outside of the door frame that would prevent him from exiting the room.
D29, is that the slide as well as the chain lock?
Correct.
Outside of AJ's room?
Yes.
35, what's this?
That's also, they had a padlock, combination lock on his closet and bedroom.
Okay, so there's a padlock on his closet. Is the padlock on the inside or outside of the door?
That's on the outside.
DCFS took custody of AJ's younger brother, Parker. When investigators talked to the brother, he said that his parents told him not to talk about AJ. He said that his mom told him that AJ had, quote, fallen down the stairs and had a lot of owies, end quote. Freund and Cunningham stood firm that they didn't know what happened to their son. In his initial interview with detectives, Freund maintained that AJ had gone missing. He claimed that he had gone to his doctor's appointment on April 18, 2019, and when he got home, he went to check on AJ and realized he was missing. They cooperated with police at the beginning, but as more and more questions arose about their involvement, they started clamming up. Cunningham eventually hired a lawyer who told the media that he advised her to no longer work with the police.
Hey everyone, my name is George Gililis. I'm an attorney. This is JoAnn Cunningham, the mother of AJ. JoAnn came here today to stay, hoping that AJ would come back at any moment and walk through the house. But I think the house has gone through a search, and the house is in a pretty rough shape and everything inside it. And quite frankly, it's very depressing to Miss Cunningham, and she doesn't want to stay here. So for the next 48 hours at least, she's going to be staying with a friend. Miss Cunningham doesn't know what happened to AJ and had nothing to do with the disappearance of AJ. Miss Cunningham is worried sick. She's devastated. And we are asking for a little bit of privacy and understanding and compassion from you guys and the rest of the community, please. And we are asking for the community's help in trying to find AJ. If anyone has information as to what may have happened to him, we ask that they please come forward and talk to the police. And that is all I have to say for now. Okay? Well, thank you guys very much.
Is there a message you would like to put out there?
It's K-I-L-I-L-I-S. Gililis.
Does JoAnn want to say a couple of words? You would like to say anything she said?
No, not right now. She's in very, very bad shape emotionally, and I want to avoid any statements. I want to give her space, and I want to give her privacy. I will say that Miss Cunningham had nothing to do with the disappearance of AJ. She's innocent of any wrongdoing, and I would ask you guys to not assume the worst. I would ask the community to not assume the worst. I would ask the community to come together and help us locate AJ.
George, you said you're representing Miss Cunningham here. What about Mr. Freund?
I do not know about Mr. Freund. I am not his attorney.
Is Miss Cunningham cooperating with the police?
Miss Cunningham cooperated with the police extensively yesterday until at some point we got the impression that she may be considered a suspect. I don't know whether she is or not, and I don't know how serious that consideration is. But as an attorney, once I realized that, I advised Ms. Cunningham to remain silent from that point on, but she cooperated extensively up until then.
The investigation uncovered cell phone data that included the 3 a.m. search for child CPR, as well as the videos of Cunningham physically and verbally abusing AJ. Freund was brought back in for questioning, and when the investigators showed him a video that showed the young boy's bruises, Freund broke down and told them the truth. Then he led them to the body. The chief of police for Crystal Lake, Jim Black, held a press conference to announce that AJ's body had been recovered.
My name is Jim Black. I'm the chief of police for the city of Crystal Lake. I know you've all been following this case over the last 6 days as events have unfolded. I have a brief statement prepared, and I will not be taking any questions as this is still an active and ongoing investigation, and we are still reviewing and processing evidence at this time. Special Agent in charge of the FBI office, Jeff Sillett, is here with me today. He will be giving a brief statement when I conclude my briefing. It is with heavy heart that the Crystal Lake Police Department reports that we have located what we believe to be the body of Andrew A.J. Freund earlier this morning. During the overnight hours, investigators with the Crystal Lake Police Department and the FBI interviewed both the mother, JoAnn Cunningham, and the father, Andrew Freund Sr., after information was obtained through a forensic analysis of cell phone data. Once presented with the evidence obtained by investigators, both JoAnn and Andrew Sr. provided information that ultimately led to the recovery, what we believe is the recovery, of deceased subject AJ. Investigators located what they believe to be AJ's body, buried in a shallow grave wrapped in plastic in a remote area of Woodstock, Illinois. The McHenry County Coroner's Office is on scene with the FBI Evidence Recovery Unit right now as we speak. The cause of death is unknown at this time and will be determined at a later date by the McHenry County Coroner's Office. Based on the current information and evidence, both JoAnn Cunningham and Andrew Freund are being charged with the death and disappearance of AJ. Both are in police custody at this time. JoAnn Cunningham has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 4 counts of aggravated battery, 2 counts of aggravated domestic battery, and 1 count of failure to report a missing or child death. Andrew Freund Sr. has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated battery, 1 count of aggravated domestic battery, 2 counts of concealment of homicidal death, and 1 count of failure to report missing or child death.
Both parents initially pleaded not guilty and proclaimed their innocence, but on December 5th of 2019, JoAnn Cunningham changed her plea to guilty after prosecutors confronted her with a mountain of evidence. Though the prosecutor pushed for the maximum sentence of 60 years, in July of 2020, JoAnn Cunningham was sentenced to 35 years in prison for the murder of AJ. Her story doesn't end there, though. Cunningham was 7 months pregnant at the time of her arrest, but it wasn't Freund's baby. Cunningham and Freund had broken up, though they were still living together, and she was dating a man named Daniel Nowicki, who was in jail at the time of AJ's death. He had been in jail for the previous 6 months for hitting his pregnant wife. That's right, Nowicki was married and his wife was pregnant when he also got Cunningham pregnant. Then he decided to smack around said pregnant wife, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Cunningham is clearly attracted to complete and utter pieces of garbage, so the sheer fact that she was having a sexual relationship with him should be instant proof that he would end up being a shitbag. According to Cunningham, Nowicki was supposed to be released from jail the day that AJ went missing. That statement was from an interview that happened while she was still claiming to not know what happened to her son. She was supposed to pick up Nowicki from jail, and he was going to live with her, and her ex-boyfriend, and the 2 kids they had together. Like one big, happy, extremely dysfunctional family that was probably not going to be very happy. Nowicki was not released from jail until more than a month later. In October of 2019, he died of a drug overdose near Indianapolis, Indiana. The baby girl was born May 31st, 2019, and was taken by DCFS after she was born. She was being fostered by a relative of Cunningham. Andrew Freund eventually pleaded guilty as well.
This court has considered all relevant sentencing factors and options, and the court will accept the terms of the negotiation presented to the court from the parties. The court makes the applicable findings of fact as specified in the sentencing orders. The court will sentence the defendant first on the charge of aggravated battery to a child. The court will sentence the defendant to a period of 11 years, 0 months in the Illinois Department of Corrections, with a period of 3 years mandatory supervised release. I believe that aggravated battery to a child will be served at 85% under the Truth in Sentencing Act. In regard to count 2, involuntary manslaughter, the court will sentence the defendant to 14 years, 0 months, with 2 years mandatory supervised release on that charge. And pursuant to Truth in Sentencing, I believe that charge will be served at a minimum of 50%. In regard to count 3, concealment of a homicidal death, the court will sentence the defendant to a period of 5 years, 0 months, 1 year mandatory supervised release. These charges will be consecutive, commencing with count 1, then count 2, then count 3. 1 year mandatory supervised release on the concealment of a homicidal death, and I believe that charge will be served at a minimum of 50%.
He was sentenced to a total of 30 years in prison. Once released, he will have to register as a violent offender against youth. This case caused quite an uproar in the community about the amount of children who had died in 2019 despite having contact with the Department of Child and Family Services. There were 123 deaths, 24 were ruled a homicide, 37 were accidental, 34 were natural, 7 were suicide, and 21 were undetermined. A report showed issues within the agency, such as children killed after the agency left them with abusive parents, a lack of foster homes for children whose first language isn't English, and children kept beyond medical necessity in psychiatric hospitals. Representatives of DCFS said that the agency's leadership had been restructured and they were overhauling the department to reverse long-standing problems with the system. We'll see how that works out. If you like this show, please subscribe or leave me a rating on whatever podcast app you use. On YouTube, you can subscribe, hit like, or leave me a comment. If you'd like to support the show, you can donate a few dollars through Buy Me a Coffee. You can click the link on our website or YouTube channel, or go to buymeacoffee.com/monsters. If you shop on Amazon, you can go to our website and click on the Amazon banner, where you can purchase items at no additional charge, but will get a small commission. I'm always trying to increase my content and improve its quality, and your support will help me do that. Thank you in advance.